My name is Matthew Gravaccioli, and I'm going to be doing my group's final presentation for our senior project. So to start out, we kind of had three main goals. Our original goal was to just develop a local player versus player mode so that we would have available functions to use within an AI. Then we would build out uh, the player versus AI mode, and then if we had time at the end, we would develop a tutorial. So for our tech stack, the front end was all done using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The back end was done using C Sharp and ASP.NET. Was there to help the front end communicate with the back end. We did a lot of UI prototyping in Figma just to make sure, are we happy with this? And then we used GitHub for our version control to help. It helped us fix a few bugs that appeared and things like that. So to start out, we developed the front end into a workable state before starting on the back end. It's very bare bones, pretty much just contained a chessboard before we begin working on the back end. Then we would focus primarily on local player versus player so that we could have the available functions to work on the AI. Once we finished local player versus player, we would create three AI models, each increasing in complexity and more competent than the previous. So the first one we developed was Randy Random. That was by far the simplest, does what it sounds like, selects moves at complete random. And that was just so that we could ensure our AI framework was set up properly. The second model is our own custom model. We wanted to try our hand and see if we could come up with a decent model. It's okay, not the greatest. It is capable of winning a game from time to time, but generally it's still easy to beat. But it does function. And then our third and final model is the Minimax AI. It We looked up pseudocode of a pre-existing Minimax algorithm and just applied our code to it, added our own decision-making logic, things like that. But it follows the search tree and things like that. And it is by far the best of our models. And then towards the end, we ended up deciding to scrap the tutorial as a whole, and we would develop online player versus player instead. So here's an example. So you can see in this top move, the knight is threatening white's white's pawn, and then white moves its pawn here just for an example case, and then black, who the AI is playing as, captures that pawn. And then in the bottom example, uh, the queen is checking the king, which forces the king to move over one spot to get out of check. And then the queen moves down, and the king has no valid moves, resulting in checkmate. So here's a little system flow of screens. So on launch, uh, it'll automatically navigate you to the home screen. This is just going to show some generic things like our group ID, project ID, and our names. And then every page will have a toolbar so that you can navigate back to this home screen, or you can go to the rules page, which just shows all the different rules of chess. And it can also go to the play page, which is where all the real nitty gritty stuff happens. And then on the end of the toolbar, that we also have a dark mode slider. It's relatively simple. So once you go to the play page, you can select defaults to player versus player local, but there are buttons on the side to select between local player versus player, player versus AI, and player versus player online. So once on local, you just have your generic restart game button, and then it starts with an active chessboard, and you both play on the same device. And then when the game ends, there's a play again and exit button, and it'll say who wins. Uh, for the player versus player online mode, there's a text, so there's a create room button, and that'll allow So a user can create a room and then it'll generate the code. And then someone can enter the join code into a text box and click join room, and then they can play against each other. And then use your generic game results, play again, etc. And then for player versus AI, we have a drop down menu so you can select the model you want to play against. We have a start game button, restart button, and you can access the other modes at any time. And we also have results, play again, etc. So some of our future plans, we will just generically investigate additional AI models. The first one that comes to mind to us is a machine learning algorithm. We just didn't have the time to get it in, but if we did, we would have liked to. And then also generic monetization. Obviously ads, but we've also the when it comes to a web page, everyone thinks ads. So we've considered that, and we actually have a mock-up of that. But we're also considering cosmetics, things that change the color of the board, change the aesthetic of the page. And then we're also considering putting some more advanced models behind a paywall, things like that. So here you can see an example of this is the play page of the website, and we have sample ad spaces over here and here. And in conclusion, our team has worked tirelessly towards releasing a full version of this chess game that includes player versus player locally, player versus AI, and player versus player online. The free version is actually being hosted live, but that's pretty much it. So for a quick demo, so you can see this is the home page. We have our names. We have a little animation playing, and then we have the rules. It shows all the different rules. And then if we go to play, we have our online PvP, local PvP, and player versus AI mode. A dark mode slider works, and I'm gonna go player versus AI. I'm gonna play against Minimax, and when I move here, it's gonna threaten with his knight. I'm gonna move up here. The knight's gonna capture, and I'm gonna move right here to threaten the knight. It's gonna run away. I'm gonna threaten again. It's gonna run away. I'm gonna move into capture range, and it's gonna grab it. I'm going to move here. It's gonna do that. I'm gonna threaten that knight. And now I'm in, now let's see, it's checked me, so I have to move. So I'm gonna move here to threaten it. And it's gonna take a piece there. And I'm gonna move here. And that's the AI. You can see it's pretty good. It'll take a piece whenever it can. And you can see the pawn was available to take, but it took my rook instead because that piece has a higher value. But just to show what happens when someone loses, I'm going to switch to local PvP real quick. I'm going to move here, move here, move here, and then move here. And black wins. That's pretty much it.